With the weather getting warmer now, I feel like talking about tropical islands around the world every week. Last week it was a Pacific island. Today I'd like to visit the Caribbean. Not Cuba, Dominican Republic, or Puerto Rico. I spend enough time talking about those islands every winter. Today we're talking about the Bahamas. Located just north of Cuba and southeast of Florida, northwest of the Dominican Republic, it's definitely in baseball territory. But despite its location, the Bahamas doesn't have a long history with baseball. It was never part of the United States or the Spanish Empire, so they don't share that early baseball history with their neighbors. As a part of the British Empire, cricket naturally became the national sport. But unlike other nations of the Commonwealth Caribbean, the Bahamas are not part of the West Indies cricket team, so playing on their own, they weren't very competitive. In 1973, the Bahamas became an independent country. Previously, teachers had been brought in from the UK, who taught cricket to children in Bahamian schools. But after independence, they were replaced by teachers who had been trained in the US. These teachers didn't know anything about cricket, and instead began teaching American sports like basketball and baseball. And because of that, cricket is not one of the top sports in the Bahamas today. Track and field is the number one sport. Baseball is maybe number 3, though it's up for debate. So the history here is unique. Unlike the other English-speaking nations of the Caribbean, cricket is not the most popular sport. But unlike the Spanish-speaking countries in the region, it doesn't have a long history with baseball, relatively speaking. Baseball is one of the top sports, but has never been the top sport. Knowing all that, you might assume that baseball's success in the Bahamas begins with cricket's decline in the 1970s. But the fact is, baseball was already enjoying a large following before 1973. It started in the 1930s and 40s when American warships docked at Nassau Harbor. A man named George Ferguson, or David Ferguson, depending on which source you're going by, invited sailors from these ships to play with the locals at the Southern Recreation Ground in Nassau, the capital and largest city of the Bahamas. And this is how baseball first came to be played on the islands. When Jackie Robinson signed with the Brooklyn Dodgers, interest in baseball grew in the Bahamas, where 90% of residents are black. Not long after that, the first Bahamian made it to Major League Baseball when Andre Rogers signed with the New York Giants. Rogers was a cricket player, and a good one too, but in 1954 he left the islands on a self-funded trip to the U.S. to try out for the Giants. He was not successful at first, as he struggled with his understanding of the game and how the style of play differed from cricket. But he eventually adapted to the game, and in 1957 made his big league debut. From 1957 until 1967 he played for the Giants, Cubs, and Pirates, a career .249 batter. In 1962, while with the Cubs, when Ernie Banks was moved to first base, Rogers was his replacement at shortstop. In 1969, he played his final year of professional baseball with the Taiyo Whales of NPB, the team known today as the Yokohama DNA Baystars. He died in 2004 at the age of 70. Though he was nowhere near Hall of Fame material, the name Andre Rogers is synonymous with baseball in the Bahamas, much like Roberto Clemente in Puerto Rico or Dennis Martinez in Nicaragua. His debut in MLB sparked a wave of excitement. In the same year, the first Bahamian Baseball League was established. In 1960, another Bahamian reached MLB. Tony Curry debuted for the Philadelphia Phillies. In 1966, Andre Rogers Stadium was completed, the country's first major ballpark. In the 1960s, while it was still a British colony, baseball was one of the biggest sports in the Bahamas. It was after Bahamian independence in the 1970s that baseball started to go on the decline. A couple reasons for this. One is the new sports introduced to the islands at this time gave people more choices. As people tried out new sports, fewer played baseball. Another reason is that no ball players from the Bahamas came close to matching the success of Andre Rogers. Tony Curry only lasted 3 years in MLB. Ed Armbrister debuted in 1973 but finished after 5 seasons with the Cincinnati Reds. In the same year, Wenty Ford became the first Bahamian pitcher in MLB, but his career lasted just 4 games with the Atlanta Braves. No other Bahamian debuted until 1983 when Will Culmer took 19 at-bats for the Cleveland Indians. And that would be it for the next 28 years. By the 1990s, the focus was on track and field, where the Bahamas became regular medal winners in the Olympics, but baseball picked up steam again in the last years of the decade. The original Andre Rogers Stadium stood for 40 years until it was demolished in 2006 to make room for the new National Stadium. However, a new stadium going by the same name is currently under construction and should be completed soon. It was supposed to have been done a few years ago, but there have been a series of delays. Seating capacity will be 8,000 to 9,000, expandable for large events. For a country of under 400,000 people, that's a pretty big ballpark, big enough to host MLB exhibition games and international tournaments with other Caribbean nations. and the dimensions will be up to MLB and WBSC standards. The past decade has seen a resurgence of Bahamian exports to the major leagues. In 2014, outfielder Antoine Richardson became the first Bahamian in 28 years to make his debut in Major League Baseball. His playing career didn't last long, but after the 2019 season he accepted a job as first base coach for the San Francisco Giants. At the end of the 2020 season, 23-year-old shortstop Jazz Chisholm debuted for the Miami Marlins. As of right now, he's hitting .290, .375, .551, with 4 home runs and 7 stolen bases through 21 games of the 2021 season. So far, so good. This year there are about 20 players from the Bahamas in the minors, and many more playing in universities and high schools in the U.S. In August of 2020, when the MLB Top 100 Prospects list was released, the Bahamas had the 4th most players of all countries, so the talent coming from there is definitely on the upswing. Despite all these individual successes, the national team of the Bahamas is ranked 84th in the most recent WBSC World Rankings. It seems that if you put all those players together on one team, they would at least be in the top 30, with the ability to upset a team in the top 20. But so far they haven't done enough in international games to earn a higher ranking. It also has to do with the fact that they don't always play on their own. In the WBC qualifying, for example, Bahamian players suit up for Team Britain. Most young ball players in the Bahamas first get experience with baseball in the Freedom Farm Baseball League. Kids as young as 4 all the way up to 19 participate. It started in 1989 with only 4 teams, but now has over 40. They mostly play their games in the Bahamas, but they've sent teams to play in tournaments in Florida, North Carolina, and as far away as Ontario, Canada. In 2013, 3 men, Albert Cartwright, Greg Burrows Jr., and Jaron Sands, opened the Maximum Development Baseball Academy in Nassau to give players the advanced training they need to play the game at a higher level. Later, Cartwright and Sands opened the International Elite Baseball Academy. So, for the last 30 years, any kid who wanted to play baseball could join the Freedom Farm Baseball League, and now they have 2 academies where they can go and sharpen their skills. Enthusiasm for baseball on the islands could get even stronger when the new Andre Rogers Stadium opens. The Babe Ruth Caribbean Region Championships, a tournament with 12 and under and 15 and under categories, will take place at the new stadium from July 7th to the 11th of 2022, and there are efforts to make this the permanent venue for the event. An even bigger ambition is to lure a minor league team to Nassau. This would create a lot of excitement since it would be the first professional team in the country. Another possibility, though it hasn't been brought up yet, is starting up a winter league, maybe just 4 teams all playing at the new ballpark in Nassau. They've got enough players who've played in the minors, in U.S. colleges and high schools, or just spent their entire youths playing in the Freedom Farm to fill up 4 rosters. One thing that would really help to keep baseball's momentum going in the Bahamas is to produce a star player. 7 players from the Bahamas have gone on to play in Major League Baseball, but none that you would call a star player, and Rogers was the only one who played more than 5 seasons. We've already seen this once. When Rogers retired and the players who followed failed to match his achievements, baseball's popularity went on the decline, and the country failed to produce any major league players for a couple decades. It takes a lot to keep people's interest in baseball in the Bahamas, because there will always be competition from other sports. As I mentioned before, the Bahamas rank 3rd in GDP per capita in the Americas, so they can buy the equipment and build the facilities for any sport they choose. Basketball is also very popular there, and they're a known exporter of basketball talent. Cricket could easily make a comeback since the Bahamas are part of the English-speaking Caribbean. Or soccer could take off there, like it has in most countries of the world. Jazz Chisholm might be that star player they're looking for. His career is off to a good start. Or that player might still be in the minors. 20-year-old outfielder Christian Robinson is a good candidate, a consistent hitter with speed and power. The future star might still be in high school or university, waiting to get drafted. Or he might be playing t-ball on the Freedom Farm, still learning how to swing a bat. We'll just have to wait and see. Anyway, that's all for this one. Until next time, this is Baseball International. See ya.